John Boy.
Lessons from the screen, what we mean is we go through different documentaries to tell you what they gon' do. Give you our lessons, give them our blessings. If they trash, we tell you there is no second guessing. Knowledge is power, but time is precious, and we're here to keep you from them lessons. So sit back as we groove, giving you the review, so you only spend time on the docs that you need to.
Welcome back to another episode of Lessons from the Screen, the show where we give you a review of whether or not something provided to you through any sort of digital medium is worth your time. We waste our time, our energy, and our brain power so that you don't have to. You're welcome. Lessons from the Screen is brought to you by PackSync through the Freedom Train Network. You can find us at www.freedomtrainradio.com or on Stitcher, Google Play Music, or iTunes. Be sure to head to all of the places, give us a review, and be sure to head to www.pactsinc.org. That's packsync.org to show some love and support to our sponsors. PackSync is a black activist and advocacy organization focused on developing the black community through a shift in culture, education, and economics. As always, Lesson from the Screen has a frame of reference and perspective that is aligned with that of the black community. So the things that we look at will be looked at with the racial component involved and with some lessons that can be used to improve the community. This week on Lessons from the Screen, we will be looking at cryptocurrencies, more specifically Bitcoins. We will tell you what it is, go into a little bit of the history, and go into a lot of the present and give some takeaways that we can use in this particular situation to help us move forward. With the vast amount of wealth flowing into and out of these new pieces of code, obviously there are a lot of people trying to jump on board the money train and ride it to the top of the mountain. But there are some risks, unnecessary risks, that come with jumping into something without understanding it. And in our community, that is a mistake that we can no longer afford to make. This week on Lessons from the Screen, we give you cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and the bubble. So cryptocurrencies go back to the early 90s. Even PayPal started out as an attempt to create one. But no one was successful for various reasons, and the only reason we still know about PayPal is because it changed from trying to create a digital currency to creating a new form of digital payment processing. Then in 2009, an anonymous entity going by Satoshi Nakamoto, and I say entity because we don't know if it was a man, woman, child, or a group of people. But this anonymous entity known by Satoshi Nakamoto produced a 9-page white paper detailing a decentralized peer-to-peer electronic cash system that would come to be known as Bitcoin. This anonymous entity continued to work with others in refining the process, and then in December of 2010, completely disappeared from the scene and has been missing ever since. Lots of people have been investigated, accused, and claimed the name, but none thus far have been able to prove that they are in fact Satoshi Nakamoto, creator of Bitcoin, the world's first successful cryptocurrency. So what is a cryptocurrency? A cryptocurrency is a digital currency that uses cryptography to secure and verify financial transactions and the creation of new units of cryptocurrency. And cryptography is basically a form of digital security that uses mathematical equations, algorithms, to create keys that are used to encrypt and then decrypt information that is digitally transmitted. Of course, it's all much more complicated than that, but that's a definition that will suffice for this show. So what is a Bitcoin? A Bitcoin is a virtual currency created and held electronically. It is decentralized and mostly unregulated, and what that means is there is no central governing authority that manages Bitcoin or that manages the production and the flow of Bitcoin. And there is no regulating body that governs the rules of Bitcoin. It is produced by computers solving mathematical equations that increase in difficulty, a process called mining. If you mine a Bitcoin, you own that Bitcoin. And mining is done through a computer program that basically requires you to leave your computer on 24/7 to be competitive. But in this day and age, your regular standard household desktop is not going to be powerful enough. You're going to need a computer designed to mine for Bitcoin that is going to be a lot more powerful than your standard desktop. And you're also going to need more than one of them in order to be competitive nowadays. Only 21 million Bitcoins can ever be created. However, the coins can be divided to the 100 millionth place. This finite number, along with the consistent reward for mining, regardless of how many miners there are, is why the mathematical problems get more difficult and why mining operations continue to get bigger and bigger as smarter computers with more computing power are needed to solve the mathematical equations and remain competitive. Bitcoins are tracked through a publicly available ledger called the blockchain, which tracks every Bitcoin transaction ever made. Blockchains are maintained through and verified by miners as well, and they get a small transaction fee for every transaction that they verify. And this means that in addition to mining for Bitcoins using the mining software, the mining software also provides the computational power, the computing power of the computer to the system as a whole to increase its ability to manage transactions, to process transactions. And what this means is that every single computer in the network has a record sheet of every transaction that has ever occurred on that network. This maintains the decentralized nature of Bitcoin, the transparency, because anybody on the network can see all of the transactions that have occurred on the network. And the more miners there are, the more transactions can be processed at one time. The more computers you have, the more computational power the system has as a whole. And the blockchain system also has some built-in safeguards to protect against fraud, double spending, and things like that. Now, because this is a public ledger, people can tell what's in any particular address at any particular time. They just won't know who owns that address or that wallet unless the wallet holder chooses to make that information publicly available, which would then compromise the entire network because people would be able to use that information to identify other wallet owners through connected transactions. Now, currently we are in the middle of this huge boom in cryptocurrency investments. A boom so large that a lot of people are pretty much 100% guaranteeing that it's a bubble that's going to pop. And there has been a strong urge to regulate cryptocurrencies, just a bit of uncertainty as to how to accomplish that, given the decentralized nature of cryptocurrency. But before we can talk about that, we have to talk about what a bubble is. So what makes a bubble? A bubble, and these are all going to be very basic, very shallow definitions, of course. But a bubble is basically when the perceived value causes something to trade at a price that is far beyond its real value. This roughly translates to people risking money that they normally wouldn't risk for an asset that they normally wouldn't be interested in, either in general or at the price it is currently available at. And with the exponential rise in the value of Bitcoins, which cause more and more people to want to get involved as fortunes are made, well, we'll go into some statistics so you can make up your own mind as to whether or not this is a bubble. But since the mid-2013, cryptocurrencies have seen their market cap grow by more than 10,000%. But the gain started well before that, and the volatility has been present since the beginning. Starting in January 2009, when Bitcoins were basically worth nothing, to April of 2011, when one Bitcoin was worth $1, it reached parity. we began to see wild shifts, because by July of 2011, it had gone up to $31. And then by December of 2011, it had dropped to $2. By April of 2013, the price had jumped to $266, the value. And then June of 2013 had dropped to $100. And this period of rapid increases and decreases has continued for much of its history. In December of last year, it lost a third of its value in 24 hours. But it has to be mentioned that the general trend has been upwards. As of 15 December 2017, Bitcoin traded at $17,900. It was valued at one Bitcoin was valued at $17,900. But by December 22nd, it was down to being valued at $13,800 for one Bitcoin. And Bitcoin currently sits at $11,000 in value for one Bitcoin. I will say that in that regard, that there are roughly 800 cryptocurrencies that have been created and are available right now. And more than half of them are nothing but tools of speculation used in trading, meaning they aren't being utilized in the real world whatsoever as a form of currency. They are strictly things that are being traded on the market. And you look at a lot of people that are just jumping in on this bandwagon, trying to acquire wealth in this asset, this cryptocurrency market sector. I mean, you look at Ethereum, one of the top 5 cryptocurrencies available right now, and in the past year, it's grown almost 1,000%. Those types of growth rates and percentages and things of that nature are just unheard of in mass, and it is ridiculous. This is quickly becoming one of the most rapidly growing valuation assets in the history of the modern economic world. So now we get into the situation where we begin to try to apply Bitcoins specifically, because that's the one that I hear most of us talking about right now is Bitcoins. That's the one that I'm getting asked about, not cryptocurrencies as a whole, but Bitcoin specifically. And people are talking about using Bitcoin as a currency within the community or as a wealth building apparatus for the community. And let me just say this. I don't think either one of those ideas are feasible right now if we're talking about a self-sustaining, independent black community. For one, we have to talk about the aspect of control, and that is something that we would not have at this stage of the game involving Bitcoins. Bitcoin currently sits, in my opinion, in the same place as the current monetary system we have. Actually, less so, because at least the monetary system we currently have with the dollar is stable. You know, when you wake up tomorrow, your dollar is going to be worth roughly the same thing that it's worth today. Bitcoin, you could wake up tomorrow and your Bitcoin could be worth something wildly different.